it's not always easy to stand out in a crowd.
With her distinctive dark wraparound windows and the styling of this boat, she could only be one thing, an oyster. But this is an oyster with a difference.
On the face of it, the new 745 might look like she was created simply to fill a gap in the range. But the reality is that this 75-footer is another key arrival in a new generation of bluewater cruisers. And she's taken her cues from both sides of her family. On one hand, her bigger sister, the 885, has done much to influence the new, modern, sleek interpretation of the familiar oyster style. But the 885 is often run as a charter boat with a professional crew, which means that crew accommodation is required. On the other, the success of the sub-60 footers in the range has provided the first wave of owners for the new breed. For those contemplating a step up from a smaller family cruiser, a private yacht that could also be chartered is a big attraction. So creating a new model that could appeal on both counts was the first goal. The second was to take the whole bluewater cruising game forwards. And on the outside, there's no mistaking the new approach.
There are plenty of details on this boat that take it into the next era of bluewater cruising. For example, flush hatches, flush decks, rather racy. Then how about this? Carbon mast, beautiful Horsebars carbon mast. How about this? Little hatch here, stowing away all your ropes under the deck, really nice idea. But perhaps my favourite, when did you last see halyard locks on an oyster? And Spectra strops? And soft eye loops? This is a new generation of bluewater cruiser.
Her sail plan plays a big part in satisfying another part of the design brief.
Blade jibs are all the rage nowadays, and on this oyster she has one too, which if nothing else makes for much easier handling.
And from here, the next major clue to her dual role as a family cruiser and luxury charter yacht lies with her overall deck layout.
One of the other important things about having a blade jib is it keeps the headsail away from the cockpit. And on this boat, the guest cockpit is 20% bigger than it's been on previous boats. But look at where the jib sheet comes. Down here, it runs along the deck, low down, goes all the way back to behind. This is the guest area here. Goes all the way back behind the steering area, right the way back to this sort of aft cockpit area where the winches are here, well out of the way of the guests. So when you're tacking, there's no flogging sheets around guests' heads.
The space and the security of the main cockpit is impressive.
It's actually proportionately the biggest cockpit that Oyster have produced. But also look at how clean and tidy it is in this cockpit. There are no winches, no control lines, no jammers. This is a guest cockpit through and through.
Then there are practical details that will appeal whichever camp you're in.
Having said that the dark tinted wraparound windows are a characteristic of Oyster, which indeed they are, these ones are subtly different. They're much lower profile. In fact, they slope much more down towards the front, giving a much sleeker look. But it's not just about looks from the side. When you're behind the wheel looking forward, you get a very different view.
Good visibility forwards is more than just a bonus. When you're handling a large yacht in a small harbour, it's essential. And the 745's cockpit and twin steering pedestals make this a doddle. There are some aspects of the new design that are less visible, such as the twin rudders. Designer Rob Humphreys explains.
What a lot of people don't realise is that they actually drop the resistance quite significantly and improve performance, and it's maybe a little bit of a step change to be able to, take an Oyster to the super yacht regattas, which they have been doing very well.
But when it comes to her layout below decks, there was another balancing act to perform. The irony is that larger boats that are run commercially can often be forced to sacrifice cabins for full-time crew.
We chose to make it a spacious 4-cabin boat that an owner could sail by himself or with some shore support, or for the less experienced owner, he could have 3 for himself and 1 for the crew. Just as with this boat's bigger sisters, we've said yes to owners' requests. You want to change it around, you want to reconfigure things. In this boat and the 825 and the 885, we've been able to say yes where we used to say no.
Which in turn leads to a wide range of possible configurations. Essentially, the layout comprises 2 guest cabins and a third cabin that can be used in a variety of ways. But it is the owner's cabin that is particularly eye-catching. One of my favourite features of this cabin are the windows. These vertical rectangular windows have become a signature of Oyster's recently, but look how practical they are in this environment. They provide loads of light and great visibility. The galley is to port with the crew quarters beyond. So going back from the crew accommodation back towards the saloon, we go back through the galley. And this is a really quite clever little bit. For those that want to operate the boat where the crew and the guests are separate, perhaps on a charter type situation, you pull this across, close that door, then you have the galley and the crew's quarters as a completely self-contained unit with an exit from the front. Overall, her layout is extremely versatile, but for those that still want more, there is a further major option, the extended transom. More space on deck and more locker volume below. In this guise, the 745 will gobble up gear. In recent years, Oyster has modified its approach to some of its designs. We've seen skegless rudders, full-width chainplate bases, aft-swept spreaders. But the 745 is one of a whole new generation. Flush decks, carbon mast, halyard locks. It's a very exciting stage for this new breed of Oysters.